what we typically look at when we're implementing strategic design is we look at something called a SMART plan. You may have heard of this before if you've taken a social media class, but it's very common and it's very important that people do this. So a SMART plan, what is that? First and foremost, what a SMART plan looks at is we look at these elements that are not only very relevant to our brand, we want to look at how things can be measured and how things can be attained by the audience that we have now, and how can we keep revisiting them throughout. And again, this does not have to be a brand that is, is an organization. It can be you, that you're looking at your particular area of influence and what can we do week by week, month by month to implement our brand better. And I encourage anybody that is seriously considering influencing to do this and check your social media analytics frequently. I usually check mine every week about how my things are doing. I have my own SMART plan for myself for things like whatever social media platform that I think is most important to me as a brand, which in this case is my Twitter. I'm very passionate about how my Twitter looks and how I post things. So let's talk about that. So a SMART plan is an acronym. And to start off, you really need to kind of look at what your base is. So do you have a social media that you frequently visit that is your brand per se? You might have something that's very personal to you, to where all you're doing is just like communicating with your buddies. That isn't a brand. It's just, again, whatever it is you feel like posting. But you might have something that is, again, your particular brand, about how you implement that particular social media. So again, we will utilize this baseline. And how you do that is look at your metrics. So Twitter, for instance, has impressions that you can look at any given point in time about what do your tweets look like, what is your engagement rate for people who are viewing whatever it is that you're talking about, as well as how are they communicating with you. Is it just so much that people are seeing it, or are they actually talking with you? So again, setting up that baseline. So I wrote one when I first joined the multimedia platform that I belong to, which is Geeks Like Us. And I said, how many followers do we have? How many Facebook likes do we have? How many YouTube subscribers? How many Twitch followers do we have? Put them all together, looked at their analytics because I was given access to it, and said, what do we have right now? And what can we do in the upcoming months to make it better? So the first step of a SMART plan is the S of it, which is what is specific. So we use that term very specifically, is specific. And what that means is, what is it that's specific to your brand that you plan on posting? Whether it, again, be a organizational brand or a personal brand. What is it about your brand that has to be specific to your identity? And what are the goals with that? So your specific goals might be gaining more followers, creating something that is on a platform that you might not utilize that so much. So, maybe I don't use Instagram all that much, and maybe that's the goal, right? Is a specific goal of mine to use Instagram more, or talk more on Reddit, implementing my brand there. Establish awareness could be something specific to us. Now, I mean, everybody is going to do some consideration for awareness problems, but it might be that you're implementing a new show. It might be that within your stream. So like, when I interviewed Anxiety, she said, yeah, you know what? One of my specific goals is to look at just a happy stream for good mental health on a Friday, where we just, show cute pictures of animals and so forth. But that works for her specific show that she wants to implement in that specific day. You may want to say, like, I'm going to establish a social media hub that everything kind of brings into and filters into that one thing where you're like, maybe I want to implement Hootsuite, for example, and create something that's very specific to the language of my hub, if you will, whether that be a website or a social media site. And it may be driving traffic, right, to that hub. So that's something that's specific. Think about that when it comes to maybe something for your brand, maybe something for a stream that you're doing. How do I implement that brand awareness by creating something specific to me? And again, this goes back to some of the lectures we've gone over in the past of what kind of need are you fulfilling that either nobody's doing or very few people are doing. So think about that. So that's specific. The next thing is for the SMART plan is measurable. So that's the M. Measurable looks at the actual statistics and the actual count or anything that you're trying to implement on social media. So maybe my measurable goal looks at, I want 10 to 20 followers, subscribers per month as my brand is emerging. And that actually can filter into the next part of it. And I'm going to kind of go over these simultaneously, is measurable, and the A of SMART, which is attainable. Finding your base is very important because you don't want to do something that's completely unrealistic. Because one, you will drive yourself nuts. And two, you might find yourself disappointed that you're not achieving those goals. So maybe instead of 100 followers per month, you're like, I'm looking more at 10 because I don't have that many people coming in. So if I view it over the course of a month, I'm saying, okay, on average, I'm gaining about 5 or 6. Cool, 10 is attainable. 10 is something that we can measure of saying we've got good progress going throughout. And so when I started my work on Geeks Like Us, we had 531 followers, and I wanted to look at about 10 to 20 a month, and currently we're at 720. So, we've done a pretty good job by over the course of the past 6 months, gaining 200 more followers. So that's pretty good. And, ultimately my follower count is exceeding what I wanted. You may look at something within measurable about what is my impressions going to look like when I boost a post. So that's actually paying money. You'll have unique visitors, and then you'll have visitors that come from promoted branding. You can utilize that. It's better to go authentic, although your reach is lower. You will have something to where you have more authenticity and more people that are interested in you rather than just somebody that comes in off the streets, even though your impressions are going to be much higher. They almost always are than something that's unique visitor. So anytime I teach a social media strategy class, I always will spend part of our budget that we create on boosted posts just to see what will happen. Do we get new followers? Do we get people more interested in the event? Blah, 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 whatever it is you're looking for. When I started my particular SMART plan, my measurable was within the number of followers, how many impressions do I want to get? So I wanted to look at a baseline of anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 impressions per month. So that's a way to do this in terms of measurable. It also looks at, for Twitter, for instance, their engagement rate. So I was really interested in 2.5 to 5% engagement rate. Again, establishing that base kind of gives you a little bit of an area for what you're looking at in terms of the metrics that go along with it. Like, what's an average? And understanding, like, going through a rhythm of doing something over a course of period of time will give you a little bit of understanding for what you should be expecting, right? And so, I understand that through posting 1 to 3 times a day, again, measurable, that I'm getting 100,000 impressions per month on Twitter, but I'm also getting, I usually average around 3% engagement. So that kind of falls within the lower side, but something that is considered measurable. And then we look at the A of the SMART plan, which is attainable. Um, Attainable kind of looks at what is realistic. And I talked a little bit about that. Um, the biggest thing within attainable is understanding what your strengths are and what your issues are for how to look at what are your goals for the upcoming months. So it's not only important to look at the measurables that's attainable, it's also important to say, what does your content look like, what it can be improved on. So going through anytime you're doing consulting work, looking at people's streams, looking at their stats, looking at how they communicated over the following months of what something looks like within their stream. One of the things I'll always say is, what can you be doing better off stream? Which I think is something that people have an issue with, is they want to do something like a stream, and yet when it comes down to uh, the work of it, it's like, I want to be done when the stream is done. Like, there we go, that's it. But it's just as important, if not more important, and guest lectures that we've done have kind of confirmed this. It's just as important or more important to have a good presence while you're off stream and maintaining those connections and posting frequently to make sure that that algorithm comes up when you have people that are viewing this. So, it's focusing on the brand, it's looking into those problems and saying, what can we be doing in terms of the attainability, not only in numbers, but also what is important to our brand when it comes to the problem. So things like for the brand we do with Geeks Like Us, the big thing was our website was not getting much traction. How do we move people towards that? How do we move people towards Patreon? How do we move people back to our Twitch, right? And so we want to be able to utilize different platforms to be able to do that. And having that as attainable goals goes a long way. So that's the S, the M, and the A. The next thing is the R, which is relevance. So what is content not only that is relevant to your audience, but also something that is going to be relevant to your business objectives and values and so forth. So maybe what you're trying to look at is, what is the relevance for our brand that we're trying to bring in something like brand centrality, gaining additional followers or something. Maybe the relevance of my goal is to say that I want to develop a stronger community rather than just have the number of followers. That's what's relevant to me. And that's what's strong within our mission for Geeks Like Us. Also within GLU, the purpose is that we're promoting strong mental health. So one of the things that we're interested in is looking at being able to not give therapeutic advice, but also be able to say that this is a strong place for somebody that you might have some mental health issues and may want to talk about it, and that we are facilitating place that isn't going to kick you out just because there might be some communication that people are unfamiliar with. And so that's relevant to us. That's something that we kind of establish as a need that a lot of people don't do. And so again, maybe your brand does something different. Maybe your brand looks at another component that is important to you specifically, as somebody that might want to do something with influencing, or kind of promote this within a organization, whatever that might be. And it may also look into the relevance of how we might be partnered with somebody, how we want to feature them as kind of a collaborator with us. And again, that may be an individual or an organization. So that's the relevance. The last thing is timely. And this is actually kind of a meta part of it. So the SMART, the T is timely. And again, this is very meta of how much do we assess something? So my SMART plan that I write up is month by month. That each time I want to look at how we grow or how we might regress on something each individual month and say, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What can be done better? So The reason we do this is because if we're looking at real-time marketing, we want to stay up to date with current issues. We want to look into things that are going on at that time, because the problem with a lot of media planning is they stick too much to their schedule and not much else. If you're doing that, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities of community engaged material that 5 months ago you wouldn't have even thought that it was an option. So again, I keep going back to this damn example. For ocean spray, 5 months ago, they would have never known this meme would exist. It wouldn't have been on their radar. But now that it's here, they've got to jump on it. Now that it's here, they have to talk about it. And that's so important to when you are referring to your brand specifically, when you are talking about whatever it is that you want to look at. Again, something that's authentic, genuine, communication that you weren't expecting, but is very much part of your story now. So I cannot stress how important something like that when it comes to timeliness. And it also, and to get into another perspective, it also may be you have a spike for something that went really, really well that particular month. And there's a reason for it. So one of the reasons when we come into like social science and we look at samples over a period of time, we've got to be careful for doing like 1 month in particular out of the whole sample set. If we're looking at the course of a year, if we just analyze 1 month, that's a problem. And the reason it's a problem is because what happens if that was just happened to be a really special month for us? So like anytime you're a toy company, and if you were to say, we're going to do our evaluation over the course of the year, and the sample month is going to be in November. Well, that would be very absurd because maybe your toy or your service is very highly featured during Black Friday. And if that's the case, that's kind of dumb to say that that's going to be the time period of it. So you would actually like look at random months over the course of the year to say, this was just an anomaly, that it's not really supposed to be like that, but it just happened to be that way at that particular time. So always focus on those things. Always look into month by month. If it was a good month and you had a good spike because of a certain event that went really well, or if it's just a month that nothing really special happened, that might be a good month to assess about how do we get through the rest of our SMART plan. So that is ultimately what I wanted to talk about today. The next class will look more at how we implement those kind of things within social media, within influencers.